Thank you for joining us today in my kind of virtual work experience webinar. Today's session is going to be all about how to design and deliver brilliant virtual work experience events. And we'll be hearing from our partners today on Zoom who have delivered programs recently, learning about exactly what it takes to ensure that your event is impactful, positive for your audience, and delivers against your desired outcomes. We'll also be touching on how to measure the success of your work experience program and what types of data you need to be collecting and how you can ultimately use virtual work experience as a valuable replacement for your face-to-face programs. Just a quick introduction to myself. So I'm Rebecca and I work at My Kind of Future as an event manager and volunteer coordinator. And I myself have worked on work experience programs for the majority of my time here. We also have my colleague Annie on the call, who I will just hand over to now to introduce herself.
Hello, yes, my name's Annie. I'm the Learning Content Manager at My Kind of Future. So that means I develop learning programs, whether that's a face-to-face experience like a workshop in a school, to learning experiences such as work experience on our online platform. So anything our various audiences learn, I design.
Brilliant. On today's webinar, we also have our partners Sam from Cisco and Camilla from TCS, who also delivered brilliant work experience programs over the summer months. So you'll be hearing from them throughout today's webinar to gather their insight and tips on running your own virtual work experience program. We're also going to be having a Q&A today as part of the session. So for those of you who have any questions off the back of today's discussion, please pop them into the chat bar, and my colleague Hannah will be reading those out after the main Q&A session so we can get your questions answered. Before we get started, just a bit of an introduction to us here at My Kind of Future and what we're all about. So My Kind of Future is a HR tech company with a social purpose. We believe that talent has no limits and work with employers to attract, place and retain overlooked and diverse talent. Our candidate and employee experience platform Connector is designed to ensure candidates feel a sense of belonging at all stages of their career journey. Connector helps candidates along the way and ensures that they strive when they enter the workplace. We work with lots of different partners and within various different industries, which you can see on the slide in front of you. And so now we're going to be hearing from two of our partners, Sam and Camilla. So I'm just going to hand over to Sam and Camilla now to introduce themselves, give a bit of an overview of their programs. So Sam, if we start with you.
Yeah, fantastic. So yes, my name's Sam, and as you can see, I'm a bit more colourful and less coordinated than Camilla is. Camilla's even got a black bottle to match her top. I've managed to clash about as much as possible, but as we go on, you'll see that that's just me. I've worked at Cisco for 10 years, and I've been in the CSR area for about 6 or 7 years. And we've been running this work experience program, not this one, not the virtual one, sorry, that's very new. We've been running a work experience program for 6 years. So it's been 6 years we've been doing sort of 14 to 16-year-olds. We run that twice a year in 2 locations, so that's 180 kids a year. And then we also do a program for girls, which is sort of a 16 to 18 program. And that comes to about 60, 70 people a year. So we've got quite a lot of experience now of delivering the face-to-face version of this program. We've had some great feedback from this, and it's also completely run by volunteers from Cisco. People come and talk about the jobs in the industry, what skills you need to build to come into this. We work on confidence, teamwork, negotiation. We do some speed interviews, which are great, a bit like speed dating, except not, of course. And we try to work with students from a very diverse background. And then the older program is a shadowing program. So that's different again. And the girls go out and they spend some time with us looking at those skills that we just talked about, but then also spending dedicated time with Cisco people. So we worked with local education people called Spark. They initially helped us work out what we should do, what years we should deliver to. And over the last 6 years, we've had fantastic feedback on this. We've had sort of social impact reports to understand what impact we have. And I know that Becca just mentioned measurement. So I think all in all, it's given us a good basis to be able to talk about work experience. And we've gathered quite a lot of experience about it now. I think that pretty much covers what I do.
Yeah, and from my side, hi, I'm Camilla. I am the Corporate Sustainability Manager at TCS, and I've been with TCS for about 2 years now. For the past 4 years or so, we've been running work experience programs. And unlike Sam and Cisco, it's a bit different because about 80% of our employees are not actually in offices. So we have very small offices scattered across the UK. So what we decided to do was to find an alternative solution, which meant that we hire venues in, at the moment, I think we have about 7 different locations across the UK. So we have London, Peterborough, and Birmingham, which is for year 12 students. And we have Bristol, Liverpool, Edinburgh, and Manchester, which is for younger students. So at the ages between 12 and 15 or so. All in all, I think we reach couple of thousand students a year because we're able to have it at a larger venue. We're able to have a lot more students come join us. But it is very much about interacting with the students, providing insights into the industry. We have TCS volunteers come in. We also have from our clients who join us. We have panel sessions with industry experts. So we have actually had from Cisco before. We've had from various different companies, Uber, IKEA, various different people come in and really speak about how they got into the industry, how they got their role, what their day-to-day lives look like, and answer any questions that the students might have. So it really is a very hands-on experience that we have. It's a week long at all the locations. So it's something that we have been developing throughout the years and really adding on to and developing the content as well. So it's been really, really good and has been growing quite a lot over the past years. But obviously things change, and we'll be going into a bit more detail about that later on.
It looks like Becca's had a few more problems connectivity there. You're back, Becca.
Yeah.
Hi.
I am. I'm so sorry, guys.
That's all right. So just to let you know where we got to, we've just finished introducing ourselves.
Thank you so much for introducing yourself, guys. We're now going to be moving on to the Q&A. Thank you, Hannah, for sharing the slide.
Fine, no problem at all. It might be easier.
Apologies.
I was like also frantically looking to see if I had an email anywhere. I was like, I can't find it.
So sorry, I'm hotspotting now, so hopefully no more issues. So guys, thank you for introducing yourself. Apologies that I missed it. We're now going into our Q&A. So this week is Sam and Camilla. So the first question is, why did you decide to run a virtual experience program? And if you start this now.
So we lost you a little bit there. I don't know if everybody did, so I'm just going to repeat the end of that. We were asked why we decided to run our work experience programs virtually. I think my honest answer here is you've heard of the expression needs must when the devil drives. Well, for me, this is needs must when COVID-19 drives. I came at it from a place where we did not have any plans to be going virtual, although we were wondering about how to engage people more widely geographically. So actually what this did is provide us with that push. As a company, we went into lockdown slightly earlier than the country did as a whole. So we sort of started going, well, how are we going to do this? And then, of course, the kids all got laid off. And then as the years progressed, we started finding out that we weren't going to be allowed back into the office anytime soon. So when this happened in March, we're thinking, oh, maybe July we'll be back. But no, wait. But maybe October we will be back. No, it turns out we are not allowed back in our offices until, or we're allowed back in, but we're not allowed to have guests back into our offices until May 2021. So at this point you say, okay, well, we don't want to just drop everything. What are we going to do? And we started rethinking how we were going to do that, and we were already working with My Kind of Future on something else, and actually reached out to them to support us in, how we might actually deliver this virtually. So, but that's why really it's we were completely driven by the lockdown and the COVID-19 stuff. So that's how we ended up where we are.
And what about you, Camilla?
Yeah, and honestly, in many ways, very similar to Sam's situation. COVID-19 changed a lot for us. We had been thinking about how we could engage students virtually, being able to reach students across the UK in areas that we normally wouldn't. But this definitely pushed our plans forward very, very quickly. because again, it was very initial thoughts. So it wasn't, nothing had been planned out, no platforms had sorted content or anything like that. But there are so many students now across the UK that are not going to be able to do any form of work experience at all this year. And we wanted to make sure that we were still able to provide as many students as possible with it. So that was really our situation here. But yeah, it definitely sped up a lot of plans, and there was a lot of long days trying to get all this sorted in time. Because we were hoping for summer face-to-face events, but obviously that didn't happen. So this was our alternative, and worked out quite well, honestly.
Brilliant, sounds good. Okay, so we'll move on to our next question.
We can't hear you, Becca.
Oh, is she dropped off again?
No, she is there. I can see her lips moving, but there is no sound coming out.
Shall I read out the question? Considering perspectives across employers, educators and young people, what were the benefits in delivering work experience programs virtually, and are there any considerations to be aware of?
Okay, so 3 parts there. So yes, for the let's do student first. Then we'll do student first. So for the students, I think doing it virtually, one of the benefits was that you didn't matter where you lived, because currently we run it out of face-to-face out of our Bedfont office, which is just outside London, and our Green Park office just outside Reading. So you needed to be located near there. So actually that took that away completely. So now you can apply from anywhere. And I have to say that we did have somebody from Ireland and somebody from Scotland and several people from the Midlands join us this time. So that delivered that immediately. Yeah, I think for teachers, it was more about still being able to get out, that knowing their students are still going to get some work experience, even though it might not be quite what it was before. But we were able to bring the company to the students, which was what we wanted to do. They were thrown into this at such a last moment, like, oh, what are we going to do? That actually, I think the teachers and the students both benefit from knowing they still had something to look forward to in July. And as for what it did for the company, getting volunteers was so much easier. We do this speed interviewing thing where if I've got 60 students, we will generally want 30 people to interview them. So one person watches, and it's about safeguarding and stuff like that. But when I have to get all those people into an office to do that, because we work virtually quite a lot anyway, that was really difficult. I have to say that getting volunteers for me was one of the huge benefits of doing it virtually, and was way less stressful for me, knowing that it was a mechanism that we were going to use. So I think one of the things to think about, though, doing things virtually has to be about accessibility. And it being equal, and let's face it, it's not. So, but I think, I'm sorry, we're sticking to the good points at the moment. They're the good points. But to take into consideration, I think, is actually people's ability to connect to the internet and how they're going to do that. So yeah, I'll hand over to you, Camilla.
Can you hear now? So there are definitely a lot of similar points to what Sam just said. Accessibility, but also flexibility is probably my main one in regards to students, teachers, and employers. Students, they can go on from anywhere. So again, we had students from across the UK, which we often do anyway, but it is over the entire year. We have location-specific events going on, whereas this time we had one live week and people could just join in from anywhere, which was wonderful. Another point that really was a great kind of effect from this was that students could complete the content whenever they were able to. So some of the students were maybe working during the day, or if they had children that they had to take care of during the day, they could complete the courses at night. The live sessions we had with panelists were recorded, so they could still see that afterwards as well. So they really didn't miss out on anything if they weren't able to join during the normal 9 to 3 day that we would host normally, which was a huge plus. So we had a lot of students really coming in with wonderful feedback saying, we would normally never be able to do this, but because it's virtual, we were able to take part. So that's definitely a huge plus for us. Again, like teachers, they were able to provide some sort of engagement for their students, and they could do it at home. They didn't have to complete a new lesson plan for them to do. They could say, here you go, this is a live event, you can take part in this. That meant a week was kind of added in there. And in regards to employers, definitely volunteering was a lot easier. They didn't have to get themselves from A to B. They didn't have to take an entire day out of their schedules. Everyone is really busy. We all know how that goes. So the fact that they could be online mentors, and whenever they had 10, 15 minutes, they could go in and answer any questions the students had. It was a lot more flexible, and we had a lot of volunteers really get engaged with the students, which was wonderful. My one thing to take into consideration, probably two things to be honest, but the first one is really accessibility, which Sam mentioned as well. Not all students may have access to a laptop. They might be sharing one with 5 other family members. They might not have access to internet. There's a lot of things to take into consideration, even though doing it virtual is a lot more accessible for students across the UK. However, we do need to keep those two things in mind, or several things in mind. And one way that we are tackling this, of course, is not perfect, but one way we decided to try and handle this was create a resource pack for Digital Explorers, which is a downloadable PDF, and it still has all the resources. It has the video links, it has all the content, the challenges. So we put all that together, which we'll be sending out to students and schools across the UK, where they can really go in and complete this course at their own time, starting really from September onwards. So we're trying to provide the opportunity for students who maybe weren't able to join us that week, but also might not have internet access and so forth. So that's really kind of my main points for that one.
Perfect. Thank you so much, both. I think that was a great answer. Just moving on to the next one. No, probably not. There we go. What are your top tips to other employers who are looking to run a virtual work experience program?
Okay, well, as traditionally we're coming to me first, we'll keep doing that, Camilla, shall we? Thank you very much. Okay, so you've all heard this before, but preparation, and I will say again, in fact, I'll say preparation, preparation, preparation. They're not my 3 things, but it's that important. And I think when you're doing something virtually, even more important, everything has to be organized in advance, and you need it sort of far enough in advance for students to be able to start doing their onboarding and stuff like that. It's very front heavy, this process, whereas when you're doing something live, you've got much more room for things to sort of change and go wrong, or to be checked, you know, during that week. So preparation. The other thing really is keep the session short and interactive. And although when you say, oh, it'd be very difficult, you know, how can I interact with this? Even as small as them being able to use an emoji to express how they're feeling at that moment, or being able to add their name to a chart somewhere, you know, by clicking, whatever platform you're using, if there is a way that you can very easily make some interactivity up, even as simple as that, they loved it. It was really take the time to find ways to think things through and think with your people who are presenting about how you can get them to interact, even in the tiniest way. But yeah, keep it short. Don't see it as an opportunity to lecture. I think that's what I would go with.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sam.
So Camilla, well, we're over to you now.
Very, very valid points, and I agree with all of them, to be honest. Another one, just again with the preparation side of things, make sure the tech and the platform works, because if that does not work, you're going to face a lot of issues from the very start. And of course, as you can see, Rebecca is having connection issues. There's always things that can happen, but generally speaking, cover all your bases, make sure that all the various different aspects of your platform work. All those kind of aspects are crucial to make this run smoothly. So definitely, that was my top one. Second one, again, it kind of is in regards to interaction and engagement. We had live panel sessions where students could ask questions. That was one of our kind of key things we had in our face-to-face events, and one that we really wanted to incorporate here, because it really does allow the students to ask any questions they have on their mind and really engage with people from the industry rather than just their teachers or parents or whoever it may be. But also, you know, have employee mentors, try and engage the company as much as possible. So it's not just your logo that's on the sites or whatever it may be, but really engage with the students and your employees as much as possible there. And those are probably my two main points. Make sure the tech works and engage the company and industry as much as possible.
Perfect, thank you both. And I can see we've got a few questions to come back to from that particular question, so thank you very much. Next up, back to you, Sam. So how has deploying a digital solution shaped your thinking for future delivery?
Well, I'm ever so happy to say that it went rather well, and actually we're going to add it to our options, rather than this, you know, being a pilot or a replacement, or we'll do one or the other. What we're actually going to just add it. It's another bow to our string. We're very happy about it. And so next July, when we can actually meet face to face, we would normally have done a Bedfont Lakes version, and then we'd have gone to Green Park. But actually this time we will do the Bedfont Lakes one, and we'll do a virtual one. So actually it's improved things. It's made things better. And it allows us to reach a wider audience. People, yeah, I'm feeling very good about it.
Perfect, thank you. And Camilla?
Sorry, yeah. I was just going to say, it allows us to extend it to more people geographically. Go, Camilla, I'm sorry.
No, so for us, it is definitely a wonderful addition to the programs that we already do run. In the past, everything has been face-to-face physical events, but this has really proved that it is possible to do it virtually. We're able to reach students in locations we normally wouldn't. So for example, in Scotland, we normally work around Edinburgh. Now we can reach students in the Highlands or wherever it may be. We're really being able to have that wider reach. And as Sam mentioned, it is something that we will be moving forward with in some shape or form. It might be a mixed delivery method, so some face-to-face events, some virtual, but really keeping in mind what we've learned this summer and taking kind of the benefits from both the physical and the virtual events and moving forward with that.
Perfect, thank you so much, both. And the final question, what are the benefits you have seen from using Connectus features in delivering your program virtually? Sam, would you like to kick off again?
Yeah, sure. I think the real benefit of this, and I think that relates back partially to the connectivity part as well, is the availability of everything on Connector. So for, you know, a week before you start, you've got your onboarding open. You've got all your content during the week. So you've all your links are hosted there, and some great sort of online stuff. And you decide what you want those modules to be. So we have some communication, some teamwork, some personal brand kind of stuff going on. But that's available during that week and for a week afterwards. So it means that people who don't have the ideal situation at home, you know, they are sharing brothers and sisters or other family members, that they do not have to be able to complete all this stuff during this sort of 10 till 4 period. They can in fact sit down early in the morning or late in the evening, or be hanging around in their bedroom or wherever that might be. When they can get their hands on the laptop, they can access those points, which means that given the timetable, they can say, okay, then I need it during these points, but other people can have it. So we felt that was one of the really good things. But the other thing that comes out of it is the reporting. It's great to know that people attended the modules, but also they give you some feedback on whether the modules were valuable. So that was great to have. So we understood how many people completed it, and we understood their satisfaction with it, and you know, we understand whether they're engaged and that kind of stuff. So for us, it's the reporting and the availability of the modules.
Perfect, thank you very much, Sam. And Camilla, anything else from you?
Yeah, just in addition to the reporting aspect that Sam just mentioned, as a company, you all know we need to report on everything and kind of what our reach is and who engaged and all that, but also all of our students who complete the program receive an industrial cadet certificate. So we need to make sure that we know exactly which students have completed the course, so we're able to provide that to them. So that's kind of just a little addition to the reporting side of things. But also really just be the flexibility and how easy it is to navigate Connector was wonderful, because if it becomes too complicated, there's going to be a lot more issues popping up left and right. So the easy to navigate is it was a huge plus, really. But also just being able to have the live panel sessions and record it as well. So for example, we are going to be using the recordings for our resource pack, which will be going out. So just really being able to have all those little extra bits that might not necessarily always be on a platform, really made it a lot easier for us during the live week, but also moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you both. Some really, really good insights that's been shared across the areas we've covered there. And we've had quite a few questions come in, which I'm excited to go through at the end. But for now, we're just going to say hello to Annie.
Hello.
As we cover everything content-wise. Hello, Annie.
Hello.
So the first question for you today, Annie, what are the key considerations when switching to digital delivery content-wise?
Great question, lots to cover there. So I think the first thing that you need to consider, and obviously both Sam and Camilla have kind of touched on that, is thinking about the platform you're going to use and what you need it to do. So if your event is, you know, a day where you are inviting panelists along to kind of share what they do in their job, and that's your experience, then you kind of just need a platform such as the one we're on now, where they can ask questions. But if it's a more kind of in-depth learning experience where you're getting students to, you know, carry out workplace tasks or scenarios, you're getting them to do bits of work and activities, you know, perhaps you need them to be able to open up files, download things, watch a video, then you need to really start thinking about the platform you're going to use, and kind of you need to make sure that it's going to do all the functions that you need it to do. And that kind of leads me on to the next one. And again, it's been touched on, but you know, the variety of the stuff that the young people are going to be experiencing. And this is so important for so many reasons. I know we talked a lot about accessibility. You know, people are going to be accessing this experience from different learning settings. They might be at home, as Camilla said, sharing the internet with lots of different people. So, you know, an interactive session like this might suit someone really well, but another student might really engage with those more self-led pieces where they're kind of doing it in their own time, doing activities, you know, opening up things, reading through things slowly. So that's considering the accessibility, but also the different learning styles that are there, and you have to kind of bear that in mind. Everybody learns in a different way, and you want to kind of make sure that you are making it accessible to everybody. I think someone asked on the chat a question around, well, how can you kind of emulate workplace tasks, you know, and that's where this variety really comes in. You could present a workplace scenario, a task, and then kind of work backwards, figure out how you'd like the student to problem solve it and provide them with the materials that they'll need to do it. So it could be a PDF that they download, a video that introduces them to a new concept. It might be that they do a quiz at the end of all of that to embed their learning. Maybe there's an upskilling session that's presented by someone at your work that they can watch to kind of set up the activity. And that's a really nice variety of different things that they can kind of touch upon to help them complete a bigger task or a smaller task. So I think variety is really important there. I suppose when you think about face-to-face workshop, face-to-face work experience, you know, where a student might go into lots of different departments, meet lots of different people, do lots of different activities. I suppose you're thinking about how you can kind of emulate and replicate that experience. So again, that's why variety is so important. You want to make sure that they're doing lots of different things so that you're kind of representing that face-to-face experience as much as you can in a digital setting. Again, something I think particularly Sam touched on is keep it manageable, keep it bite-sized. You know, for a lot of young people, reading huge chunks of text is quite an uncomfortable thing to be presented with. So keep any kind of text they have to read light, and just try and make it as interactive as possible, bite-sized chunks, and keep with that manageable piece. You know, understand the flow and consider how you want the young people to navigate their way through this experience. So say, for example, if it's a 5-day event and they arrive on day 1, you know, what do you want them to be doing first? What's the information they need to get first? How are they going to navigate their way through the experience, and what information do you need to give them? So, for example, on some of our programs, we've actually used hosts. So we've employed someone to create a video to kind of welcome them, tell them about how they should navigate their way through the week. So it might be that we release certain activities. You need to do this on Monday morning. Then we'd like you to have a go at doing this at lunchtime. So just make the instructions really clear and what they need to do really, really clear. And feedback, feedback is such an important part of learning, and it's really easy, I think, to neglect when we suddenly go virtually. But young people especially, they need that feedback, they need to, they need that reassurance, and it's all about confidence building. So no matter how small feedback wise you can offer, make sure you are offering it. So if you are asking them to complete an activity, are you then going to get them to upload their answers to you? And therefore, have you got someone in the background who can be going through submissions and offering them something back? So therefore, does your system need a chat function or a way in which they can kind of mentor and message people? Or even if it's just a case of saying, here's an activity, complete it. Or by the way, we've also created a really good example of a kind of best practice or best version of that answer. Why don't you take a look at that once you've completed the task to see how yours compares? Just something that gives them that kind of feedback on the work that they've completed. I would say that those are the main things, the main things to kind of consider moving onto digital.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Annie. I think there was some really, really good detail in there, and it's good that you managed to cover some of the questions that have come in as well. So that was perfect. Thank you.
Great.
And the next one is, what types of content would you say students respond best to?
I mean, again, I think it's coming into that variety. Students learn in lots of different ways. Some prefer to kind of work on their own and to really get their head down and figure out a project and do problem solving. Others really, really thrive in that kind of team space and doing things collaboratively. So I think one thing that probably links everything together is students do respond well to problem solving. They do it well. They like to be presented with an issue that they can solve, and that's a really good hook, especially into kind of workplace skills and giving them a kind of task that emulates a workplace activity. You can really kind of make the most of those problem solving things and think about what issues you've solved within your business, and can you kind of make a version of that that's going to be suitable for young people. And if you give them enough information and activities and kind of instructions that they can follow, oftentimes that's it, they're off. I think we've certainly found that with some of our programs. We've presented them with something and really they've kind of taken that problem and not only solved it, but they've really gone the extra mile, because they are, young people are creative. So yeah, I guess having the opportunity to be creative is something else that students respond really well to, and it's not always easy to do virtually. You really have to think outside the box and think about how is this activity going to really feel creative for the young person. But yeah, problem solving, creativity would be my top two, I think.
So Annie, I would just like to sort of back that up with something that came out of the virtual work experience in July, was the group work. So with 60 students divided into 10 groups, they were given a problem at the beginning of the week and then asked to work each day on it and to present it to our dragons on the Friday. Now that group work initially was getting a 4 out of 5 feedback. By the Friday, that was 4.9 out of 5. So I think that just that you could see how as the relationship with them together built and they got further on through solving their problem, they enjoyed that task more and more. So the stats that we had, the feedback we had from that, would absolutely back up what you're saying there.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you both so much. And finally, what would you say, Annie, the key content elements were to be avoided by employers, and what common mistakes are made here?
Cool. So I think I touched on already slightly, but just anything that's too long, too drawn out, too conflated. Get the students to do one activity that's really good, that they can do really, really well, rather than trying to kind of involve too many elements, especially if it involves reading an essay or something before. Just keep things simple. I think underestimating the time and resource it takes to create a really inspiring and in-depth learning experience virtually. I think if you put a facilitator or a volunteer at your business in front of a group of students, with a presentation, they're filling in so much verbally. And so if you're having to take all that verbal information, and find a way of presenting that online, that's a really long, drawn out process. and to get that variety and to figure out the learning outcomes and how you're going to achieve it, and you know, to really make it enriching, it's a time-consuming activity to do. So I suppose don't think that because the experience is going online that it's going to be quick and really easy to produce. And as Sam said, preparation, that kind of all feeds into it. I suppose not testing things. So, you know, once you've created your experience, is there something that you can get either people internally or even better young people? Can you get them to test it out? You know, does it make sense? Can you navigate it okay? Do you know what you're supposed to be doing? It's always a really good idea to obviously test things. I think missing key instructions. So if you've got an activity, it might feel, because you've spent time creating it, really obvious to you how to complete it, but someone coming from point zero, you know, they might think, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. So just really being clear and concise with the instructions. What do you need them to do? What do they need to do it? What do they need to open? What do they need to download? What are we asking you to do? Just be really clear with the instructions. And, you know, with that in mind, with some of our programs, we've had sort of course tutors online ready to support with questions, because the students were completing so many activities, 3 days worth of content, so we knew that there would be inevitable questions. So we actually had someone that was there 10 till 4 answering questions. I think they answered about 2,000, so over 3 days. So sometimes it is worth having that person there as like additional support. Another pitfall, I think, and it's a really easy trap to fall into, is creating it for adults, using terminology that young people can't relate to, you know, assuming that a young person would know what a certain system is or a certain phrase meant. You know, you can't abandon those really basic learning principles for young people just because it's online. You know, it's still really important to remember all of those things. I think, Sam, you mentioned don't use it as an opportunity to lecture, which is so true. Always think about what the young person is hearing and experiencing. What do you want them to get out of it? And yeah, I think those are the main pitfalls and things to avoid.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Annie. I think that was a really, really insightful session. And I think we've got time just about for some questions that have come in. If I start by reading some out, I think, you know, if the relevant people can answer, if I can direct it to a certain individual, then I will. So Tracy has asked, what have been the logistics around a virtual work experience program around safeguarding and face-to-face online? Kind of what are those two differences with safeguarding?
So safeguarding, you know, when you're doing it face-to-face, it's much more about, you know, making sure students aren't on their own at any given time with people, and, you know, ensuring that content is appropriate and language is appropriate, and that you know, they're basically, it's not just safeguarding the student in that situation, but the staff, you know, the member of staff as well, who might be working with them or doing the interviewing or being the mentor. But those things have been, we've dealt with them online as well. So generally in the sessions, WebEx training is one of the things we use. So the students are there as a big group, and there will be a presenter or presenters. So there's no risk for safeguarding going wrong there. Plus, not only the presenters are in that room, either myself or somebody else from my team will be in that room to, you know, as much as anything to keep the tech moving smoothly, but also to make sure that, you know, as we just discussed, that content and language and stuff are appropriate. We do, I just said earlier, we did this speed interviewing, and again, that's about not leaving the student on their own. So even though we would interview people in pairs, so one student is never alone with a Cisco person, plus each of these online rooms that they're doing interviews in, myself and my team have access to, and we will be circulating throughout these rooms continually. At the end of the day, we do the group work stuff. So a group of 6 people, each has a mentor, and again, they are in a room that's set up that only they can get into with using that link, and myself and my team will be going in and out of these rooms continually. So we take the safeguarding is, you know, is a very important to us. We hope that we've looked at it from as many ways as we can. Obviously, we've taken advice about how to keep people, you know, how to keep young people safe as well. And so we hope that the things we put in place have addressed that. We certainly are not getting any feedback saying that we need to change things, and it is something that we take advice on.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sam. And I think a good question that's come in here again from Sarah is if a year 12 student were to apply for a role with you in 2 or 3 years' time, what weight would this virtual work experience program give in the recruitment process in comparison to, say, for example, a face-to-face placement?
It would give the same weight face-to-face, yes, it's easier for people to make an impression on you, but either way, by the end of a week of spending people with, you know which students have engaged, you know which haven't, you know which were a pain in the arse, you know which were really great. So you know you've got this, and we do try, and we're certainly developing a program where we'll keep in contact with these people more. But we say to people, if you want to keep in contact with us and come back, then that's great. We will keep in contact with you and let you know, the recruitment teams will, and let you know when things are made, you know, when applications for internships or apprenticeships or grads are made live. But it would have the same weighting, to the extent that they might say, well, we did the work experience, and then they would come back to us and say, well, what did you think of so and so? And of course, if they were pain and really bad, you'll go, oh my God, yeah, I totally remember them. But equally, if they were one of those people that really engaged and were just just happy to be there and passionate, you'd be going, oh yeah, I totally remember them. So you would need to stand out in one way or the other, because yes, quite a lot of people will go through the middle of it. But the other thing to remember is that sort of, you know, there's lots of different styles of, so companies do those days where you come on and you do an assessment day. So even though they might come, you know, the recruiter might come and say, do you remember so-and-so? And you'd say, oh yeah, they did that program in July, or they did the virtual program. Once you've got past that point of them not being somebody you wouldn't want, they would have to go through the same assessment program as everybody else would. Because, you know, that's put in place to ensure that people are employed on their merit, not on who they know. So yes, being involved with us will mean that you know when those opportunities are available, but that does not mean that you'll definitely get into there. Although, having said that, I have to say, so many of our apprentices this year came through one of these work experience programs. So there is some value in doing it, but there is no more weight in the face-to-face version than there would be in the virtual version.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, actually, it just shows that you are interested and you're engaged. So whether it is one of our programs, whichever company you want to apply for, or something else, it doesn't really matter. But just showing that you are taking the time and you're taking time out to actually, you know, take part in these kind of events, have these certificates, does make a difference. Because if you are coming up against someone with pretty much the same CV as you or background as you, but you have these in addition to that, it definitely does provide you with a kind of added benefit there, because you have shown an interest throughout the years, rather than just coming and saying, I actually haven't done anything this, but I would like to do this. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it does give you an added benefit there. And just one thing I actually wanted to add to the safeguarding aspect, that was the question before, is having a kind of a course for anyone who's going to be online with the students, whether it's employees, TCS, you know, mentors, or whatever it may be, so that they are aware of what is acceptable and what isn't, and kind of things to look out for when they're working with the students. Because obviously the face-to-face one, we're all kind of around, we're keeping an eye on how things are going. We can't be there all the time when they are doing the virtual ones. So whoever you have from your side as a company, make sure that they know what to look out for and what is acceptable and what isn't in this kind of situation.
Absolutely agree. It's good to brief all of those people, even to do one meeting where you brief everybody, but
Exactly.
Absolutely agree with that.
Perfect, thank you both. And I'm conscious of time, so I think what we'll do is we'll do 2 more questions, and then anything that isn't answered live on this session, I'll ensure that your question is answered personally and directly following the session. So Camilla, you've had a couple of questions come in around the accreditation. So how did you gather evidence from students that participated to ensure that students who had received the Industrial Cadets accreditation had actually completed the tasks?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question, and one that we spent a lot of time beforehand making sure what it was that we needed to make sure they had completed in order to get the certificate. So we had several different sessions throughout the week. They had to have completed all the sessions, as well as handed in a finished product as such at the end of the week. So if they handed in a blank piece of paper, obviously that was not going to go. But if they were able to show a final product based on everything they had learned that week and had completed all the courses, then they would be eligible to get that certificate. But it really was making sure that they had gone through all the steps, they had learned what they needed to, and being able to provide a finished product as such at the end of the week.
Yeah, Camilla, just about that, we similarly have a level that you have to read. So there's all the compulsory modules, and then there's some selectable ones, and then there's the Dragon's Den. But you're absolutely right. It's all about making sure that these people have completed these things. So for us, it's, you know, half of the sessions are selectable, the rest are compulsory. But yes, I have to say that, you know, quite a lot of effort goes into making sure that that is completed. And, you know, if you see people, you know, maybe going to slip between the crack, just saying to them, you have to remember that you need to do this to get this.
Exactly.
And they get a lot of value from that certificate. So
exactly, and that's actually another thing that was really great. If you see any students that are struggling or are so close to finishing but seem to somehow have been forgotten somewhere, reaching out to them and saying, hey, you're only missing this tiny little piece to be able to complete it. Go ahead, get it done, and produce that piece of work. So it really does help to kind of be on them as well, making sure that you kind of encourage them to finish the courses, the products, whatever it may be. That really does make a difference as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, both. And then the final question today before we close. How much training did you give your volunteers for delivering these online?
Well, I'll start with that one, because at Cisco, it's reasonably easy for us because we spend a lot of time working like this. Now, obviously, we don't use Zoom, we use WebEx. And you can see I have my Cisco branding in the background here. Very proud to work for Cisco, you see. I like to let everybody know that. But yeah, I think, you know, because our guys regularly present using WebEx, particularly the salespeople must be using this all the time. But they're actually quite at ease doing this. So it hasn't been too difficult. And actually, I know that we earlier in the year helped train lots of teachers how to use WebEx and stuff. So it's slightly different for Cisco people. So Camilla, I think this might be one that you've got a better answer to.
In some ways, yes, but I think also, to be honest, the whole COVID situation has really helped a lot of our employees get comfortable using this kind of platform. Whereas before, I personally didn't have a lot of calls like this. A lot of what I was doing was face-to-face, and a lot of our employees were as well. But having this time to kind of get used to speaking to a computer, a phone, whatever it may be, has really helped a lot with just kind of building the confidence and making them comfortable with it. But again, really a briefing session, it does wonders. Especially if it's a new platform that they're using or whatever it may be, just really saying, okay, this is the button you have to click on there, this is what happens, or, you know, kind of this is when you're starting, and just really preparing them for it makes a huge difference. But definitely COVID has worked wonders in getting people comfortable with this kind of platform and doing things virtually.
And just to add to that, I think also, you know, what really helps is putting the volunteers in the driving seat. So if a really important aspect of of your program is having volunteers from your company involved in some way, you know, rather than saying, we want you to come and do this session here at this time, you know, say, we really want our students to learn about this. What have you got for me? And then once they kind of get back to you, then you can say, oh, okay, how can I kind of build a session or build a module that's around that piece that they can offer? So you can always kind of flip it as well and you know, appeal to their comfort zone as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And just kind of adding to that as well, what we did do was we had some of kind of a life in the day off, and just kind of asking TCS employees to just really have a very short video of them explaining what it is they do, some of the challenges they face, some of their favorite bits of the day, you know, how it changed from pre-COVID to now during COVID. But it's really having them kind of make their own spin on it, and seeing what they like to present and what they wanted to share. Obviously, all of that is done beforehand, before the live week. But like Annie said, really putting them in the driver's seat and saying, what would you like to share? What kind of angle would you like to put on it? It does make a big difference.
And actually, that's some of the stuff that we do live during the week of those things, which gives people the opportunities to ask questions. But it's just made me think about the fact that actually, having recorded those things for when we did it in July, does that mean I've now got some canned content I could use?
Perfect. Well, thank you so much all. I appreciate we have overrun a little bit today, but really, really appreciate all your insights, Camilla, Annie, and Sam. Thank you for joining everyone who did today. I've put everyone's contact information on the slide now. If you'd like to further a conversation or chat a little bit more about what we've covered today, please do. And a member of MKF will be following up with you all with the slide deck, so you'll have these contact details with you as well. But thank you so much to our speakers. I think you've done a fantastic job today, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.